And I've learned that there are certain things that we have to learn to just sort of let go. And maybe they struggle with drugs or they struggle with other different type of things, and you've been trying so hard and you feel like you've tried everything in your own means to try and help that person, but they just Alright guys, hey, what's happening? Welcome back to FT Films. So, Kirk Franklin. Yeah, this is quite the situation right now. You know, a lot of people have been talking about it. You all know about the leaked audio that came out that Kirk Franklin's son recorded. You know, it's been dividing the internet left, right, and center. And there's a part of me that's kind of happy to see that people are beginning to look at these situations very objectively. And gone are the days where people just sort of like see something like this happening, and someone like Kirk Franklin, just because he's a gospel musician and also he's a minister, he's a full-time minister actually, and we sort of hold them to such high standards that we expect them to like not even sin. Like if something comes out like this, there was a time and point where he would have been persecuted for it. Everybody would sort of like have this high and mighty tone, like, oh well, you know, you're not supposed to do that, you're a pastor, you're supposed to know better and all that. Gone are those days, and we're not dealing with that nonsense anymore, and people are beginning to really start to read the Bible for themselves, and we're starting to understand that God holds us to a standard that is equal, on an equal basis. So yes, we expect ministers to conduct themselves in a certain way, but that expectation isn't set by us, it's set by God's standard, the very same standards that God has already set. And the same applies for us. But for ministers, of course, to be held to a higher standard simply means that when you preach or when we go out there and we minister to people, we minister the things that we practice, or we minister the things that we have been applying, and we're sharing our wisdom, and we're encouraging the church, we're encouraging people in the right way and conduct of living as we learn, because that's where the word preaching and proclaiming really comes from, in that we share the gospel, our reflections, our experiences, in the hopes that it also encourages other people. So if anything, if there's any testimony to bear or to give with regards to what Kirk Franklin is going through, it will probably be, what do we learn from this, and what does it teach us, what does this teach us, and how do we reflect as Christians on his experiences and what he's dealing with. And he's not dealing with something that's particularly different from what we might particularly deal with as people in our lives. We've got people who are difficult to deal with in life. Now speaking in context, hoping that we all have the context of what had gone on, but we got to look at it from a now preacher's ministry point of view and perspective. A lot of times we tend to forget that preachers are people. They have lives, they have wives, they have family, they have children, they have cousins. There's always a cousin, you know. There's always this talk about, you know, we expect them to do so much. We expect them to pray for us, to preach, to visit the sick, to visit us, to do a lot. You know, there's much that's expected from preachers, but there's not a lot of giving back. Does anybody ever take the time to wonder about the fact that, by the way, while he's taking the time to prepare a sermon, he actually has to deal with the fact that he's got a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, a sibling who's struggling through cancer, or who's going through a lot of stuff that they have to deal with, but they need to still pray about that, and they need to, you know, use that to fuel that energy and that spirit to prepare sermons and come and deliver to the church, because that's part of the life that they reflect on, the things that they deal with, and use that to encourage the church, to nourish the church, the spiritual food that we get from them. More than often, people tend to forget that, you know, they need grace just as much as we do, because they have a lot to bear with and to deal with. They've got responsibilities at home. Yes, they've got children, they've got problems just like us, but they've got problems, they've got to deal with that. They've got to deal with us and our problems and more, so there's always an added element when it comes to the preacher's desk and what it what it demands and what it commands of us. And that's why a lot of times whenever I come across a lot of young people, well, people of my generation who sort of aspire to get into ministry, sometimes I kind of wonder to myself, like, do people really understand what they're getting themselves into? Because it's not really all that simple. It's not that, it isn't simple at all. It's not just about the fact that you can talk. It's not about the fact that you can give nice speeches or nice sermons or anything like that. We got to be careful of what we desire, in that often what we desire and the implications of what it requires from us or what it demands out of us comes with the kinds of demands that most of us aren't capable of meeting, because it really comes down to just that. A lot of us aren't capable of meeting its demands. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt, of course, that all of us gets pushed to a point where, there's always going to be somebody who really ticks our buttons. And if everybody had to kind of know each and everything that, we probably deal with in our lives, and we end up cussing because we're angry and all that nonsense, I mean, come on, you don't want everybody to hear that. It was a private affair that ended up being public because an immature young man of my generation, he's 33 years old, I'm 35 years old. Somebody of my generation should be matured enough, but was immature enough to leak that. Why did he leak that? What was he hoping to achieve by doing that? You know what I mean? So that was a pretty calculated thing right there, which just shows that it's quite a troubled young man right there. And now that we do know the context of everything, and that there's counseling that's that the family has been trying to initiate, or they've been getting into to help him out. He's a messed up dude, man. Okay, he's a messed up young man who hasn't gotten his act together. But what kind of lesson do we learn out of that? What do I really kind of think about that? Because a lot of you out there probably have somebody that you're reaching out to that is part of your life, or is part of your circle. Maybe it's a child, it's a son or a sibling or a friend that needs to be saved. And maybe they struggle with drugs, or they struggle with other different type of things, and you've been trying so hard and you feel like you've tried everything in your own means to try and help that person, but they're not really responding well. It's really interesting because in my lifetime, in my short lifetime of 35 years, I've come to realize and learn that there are times when we try really, really hard to help a person who just doesn't really seem to recognize and see the helping hand that we are giving him. They just seem to identify the helping hand as a hand that's trying to cripple them. For some reason they interpret that, or in some psychological or twisted way of seeing that, they kind of like they're afraid of reaching out or accepting that hand of reaching out to help them, because they still kind of think, okay, but what if I kind of trust this person and allow them to help me, but then they're gonna, then it's gonna turn the other way around, or it ends up harming me as opposed to healing me. There are things that we can't help as people, and I've learned that there are certain things that we have to learn to just sort of let go. Still have an open door to and the willingness to help a person, but we got to learn to also just kind of remove ourselves from a situation. Now, I'm not one to be in a position to like advise Kirk Franklin or anything like that, but for people who might be in a similar situation like that, I've come to also learn that sometimes there are situations that because you're trying your level's best to really help them out, it just doesn't really help. For some reason you don't know what to do anymore, and that can frustrate you, that can take a lot of energy out of you, and sometimes that changes you as well as a person, and you find yourself just at a point of despair. And I think that's where Kirk Franklin kind of found himself in a position, in a situation that he got frustrated and he just lost it. Sometimes we need to allow God to stretch his hand out into a situation that we can't help. We need to allow people to figure things out for themselves. we need to allow people to sort themselves out without us having to want to hold their hand every step of the way. It's difficult, it's hard sometimes, but I feel like, everybody has to live their own lives, and I feel like I have no doubt in my mind that Kirk Franklin and the family and everybody seem like people who are well intended, and they mean well. They've been providing all the resources necessary. Even his mother, the young man's mother, even came out in defense of Kirk Franklin to say that, she's not going to stand around and just let Kirk Franklin, deal with all this on his own, because it was a private affair that leaked. And the young man is loved. He's got the full support. He's got the privileges that a lot of people aren't able to afford. But he's just not really seeing that, because he's in a rough space. Some of you might be dealing with a person like that in your life. And sometimes, because you are trying to fix them, it's a matter of realizing that it's not for you to fix them. Stop trying to fix people. You are not going to fix them. Let God play his part, and if they're willing to allow that to happen, let that happen. If it means that sometimes you gotta just let them be on their own, figure things out on their own, let them figure things out on their own. Because otherwise, if you don't, they can drag you down. They can really, really drown your energy. At the same time, as I've said, it's about striking a balance between knowing the difference between leaving a door open and simply removing yourself from a situation that you're probably just not the one who's supposed to fix it. And that's how the ball rolls. Yeah, I respect the man. I respect Kirk Franklin. I'm pretty sure that he's a solid guy. I don't think this broke him in any way. I don't think this will break the family. I don't think this is just a sideshow or a sidetrack. Praying for you, bro. I'm praying for the rest of you guys who are dealing with whatever. If you need prayers, leave your comment down below about whatever you need me to pray for, and I promise you I will commit to it, and I'll pray for you guys and whatever you need prayers on. And with that said, I think that's just what I think about this whole situation of Kirk Franklin ministry and the stuff that we have to deal with in life as people. So take it easy, guys. Thanks for watching. Do like the video, do leave a comment, or a prayer request if you need a prayer request. Subscribe if you want to see more videos from me, and hit that notification bell as well, and you're gonna know when I drop more videos from there on. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching. See you next time, and God bless.